En acceptant le mandat qui lui a été confié,
So by accepting this mandate to take part in rebuilding the education system in Haiti, that was almost destroyed by the earthquake in 2010. As you know, almost all schools in Port-au-Prince and in the neighborhood were destroyed. Teachers, students, administrative people were killed, unfortunately. And it was an honor for us that WISE chose Haiti as a symbolic country in order to rebuild the education system. So by accepting this mandate, the task force had to meet some challenges. First, we had to adopt an innovative approach that would be in line with the spirit of WISE. Second, we wanted to highlight the education experiences that are successful and that can help the country succeed after the earthquake. And the objective was to show there is an internal dynamics within the country and that we shouldn't simply wait for input from outside. And this is how we should rebuild our country, because Haiti had become a major lab after the earthquake. And third point, and also in the spirit of WISE, we had to communicate, we had to convince people, we had to involve all stakeholders, the Ministry of Education in Haiti, the fundraisers and the partner institutes such as AUF, UNESCO, the World Bank and the IDE, and the bilateral partners such as Spain, France. And also, we had to make sure that practitioners were involved. That's what we did. Know those people who, in the field, innovate on a daily basis in extremely difficult conditions. And obviously, we also wanted to involve international stakeholders and have international input. So we had an example from Paraguay and the Escuela Nueva from Brazil. And those people took part in the conference that was held in September of this year. So this conference allowed us to have a look at some of the challenges. And we had a specific method, case studies, innovative approaches, and this specific way of doing things allowed us to identify approximately 20 case studies, and I'm going to publish those case studies that are all grouped in a document, and this will be available online. I think some of them are already online, and you will be able to see in short videos how those experiences were documented. So those experiences, together with the ministries, with national partners, with the fundraisers, have allowed us to share all that knowledge in a very solid way. It was an opportunity for all those people who didn't know each other to get to know each other. You know, people from the north didn't know what people in the south were doing, and vice versa. And it's because we're able to share all those experiences. And this went from early childhood to higher education, students with special needs, and also street children. And this was extremely fruitful, lots of ideas, and it allowed us to highlight what works, but also what contradictions might exist, and there are quite a few of them in our country. And also the way to highlight hope, the hope that we can rebuild an education system in a country with the practitioners, those who are on the ground and who work on a daily basis in order to improve things in extremely difficult conditions. And it was about raising awareness about the fact that education is extremely important if we want to rebuild the country, and that we have to work with the existing environment, with the historical environment, natural environment, historical environment, and cultural environment also. And the conference also highlighted that there is a real gap between specific stakeholders. You know, at the ministry, we work a lot in a superstructure that doesn't always take into account what people do in the field. And this was highlighted during the conference. We also showed, actually, the representatives from the ministry were totally shaken by some of those case studies that had been presented to them. So the objective was to show that there is some dynamic, and this is what will allow us to rebuild our country. But here again, there's still a lot that needs to be done, but we have the right approach, and now we have to base the outcome on the actual needs, and we have to share everyone's experience, and we have to rebuild our education system in Haiti, and we have to put children in the center, young children, young women. I'd like to thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Michel. Fanny, I give you the floor. You present the perspective, I would say, from the non-Haitian, if I may say, which is complementary to the Michel presentation.
Thank you very much, Jean-Eric. It was a great pleasure to be part of this task force. For me, it was a first visit to Haiti, so I had no previous experience and previous expectation. I thought what Madame Pierre-Louis raised and put forward in terms of sharing with you what happened in this workshop was spot on. So I'll pick the dimensions that I see are important for going forward within Haiti, but also in other countries. The first thing that I thought was unique was the timing. Most countries after crisis are focusing on humanitarian aid, short-term issues. To do that, the long-term thinking about education after a crisis was a fantastic decision, because it allowed not only the thinking about what is really important for the long term, but also looking at how the short-term problem of a nature-based event could actually be used to transform the education system. And as we think about climate change, and we look at the number of countries that will go through disasters, the lessons learned from that experience of how you adjust the long term using the short term crisis was something that Haiti can learn for itself, but also offer as lessons to others. The second one, which was also very important, was that the country had just gone through an election, and the political leadership had highlighted education as its top priority. So again, the timing was very right to bring in what works in the local context that can be used politically to move forward. There was a strategy for education that was in place, and sharing the strategy along with people who had been working for many years getting successes and being able to fine-tune the strategy using those success stories was a great opportunity as well. And then the third area was more around the fact that there are lots of players on the ground, lots of aid financiers, partners who are working on different subjects, and up until that point had not really talked to each other. So the opportunity for sharing and learning was absolutely spot on. The idea of starting with what works was important. First, because of the mindset, the importance of thinking that you can succeed, and the importance of ownership of success. I think those were key things because they allowed going beyond the crisis to really think about we can do it, we have done it, and we know how, and how that can be used then for the long term to scale up success stories. The other thing that was unique is it was a workshop with case studies that looked at the whole chain of the education sector, from basic education, teacher training, tertiary education, vocational training, the training of communities, the link to work, and the whole chain, including research. And what I thought was quite amazing about that is that not only were there success stories like how do you teach kids effectively about science, like in the example of Les Oliviers, or how do you improve access to rural girls and rural children in general, like the Le Paradis des Indiens, or special needs, as Madame Pierre-Louis mentioned. Then the other area, which I thought was quite amazing, was something that came up in the opening remarks at today's opening. This question that WISE this year is focused on changing society and changing education. But the two things that struck me in Haiti was that beyond individuals who were actually evolving to transform their own society, individuals and the context were transforming education. And I'll give one example. There was one case study that we saw, which was a Cine Institute, which is a cinema training school. And in that school, the founders of the school came with ideas from Hollywood that this is how you do films, and they started the school training people to come out and enter into the cinematography industry of the world. The founder told us that beyond the tradition where you have a script, you look for the cast, you produce your film, you put it on the market, looking at the Haitian context transformed that philosophy of movie making. Because you start with the actors, and the actors generate the script. And the script gets used to produce, and you go back and forth with feedback loops. I thought that was a good analogy for the transformation of the education system that is needed to make it right for the context. So you start with the actors, to make it adaptable to what you learn with feedback loops between production, script writing, and acting. And that has a transformational effect on the final product, which is the type of Haitian movie that comes out of this story. So those are my remarks. I'll maybe say a few more, but it was a very important event, and I was very happy to have been nominated to participate in the task force.